This is a knife. You use it to slice steak, spread butter, maybe open Amazon packages when no one's looking. But once upon a time, this was your weapon, your toolkit, and your passport to civilization. Today, we're talking about cutlery. Not just where it came from, but how it shaped civilization. How forks sparked outrage, how spoons were status symbols, and why your dining habits today are the direct result of political schemes, religious outrage, and industrial engineering. This is the surprisingly violent history of cutlery. Let's start with the knife. Before there were forks, before even spoons, there was the blade. Early humans began sharpening stones over 2 million years ago, long before Homo sapiens were even a thing. These were the Swiss army knives of their time, used to hunt, to carve, to eat, and yes, to fight. As metallurgy advanced, knives transitioned from stone to copper, bronze, and eventually iron. Ancient Egyptians had ornate daggers buried with their pharaohs. The Romans had table knives, but mostly for cutting meat before eating with their hands. And this brings us to a weird cultural detail. For most of history, people didn't serve food cut up and ready. You brought your own knife to the meal, like bringing your own phone charger. It was personal, and sometimes deadly. Fast forward to 17th century France. Knives were so essential at the table that people carried their own around in sheaths, sometimes openly. But this made dinner a high-stakes affair. Small insults could escalate quickly when everyone at the table had a blade within arm's reach. According to legend, Cardinal Richelieu, chief minister to King Louis XIII, was so disturbed by guests picking their teeth with sharp knives, or by the occasional violent outburst, that he ordered all table knives be rounded at the tip. Louis XIV later made this a royal decree. Sharp-pointed knives were banned from the table and streets entirely. It wasn't all about etiquette, it was mainly about reducing violence. The spoon also is older than civilization. Long before the wheel, early humans were using shells or pieces of wood to scoop up water or mushy food. The ancient Egyptians made spoons out of ivory, wood, or stone, sometimes shaped like animals or religious symbols. These were not basic tools, they were objects of ceremony. In medieval Europe, spoons became highly personal. Wealthy nobles had silver or gold spoons with intricate engravings. Lower classes used wood or pewter. The word spoon actually comes from the Old English spawn, meaning a chip of wood, like something whittled off a branch. And for centuries, if you were invited to a meal, you brought your own spoon. In fact, in some cultures, giving someone a spoon was an act of love or religious significance. It's why the tradition of a silver spoon as a christening gift still exists today. So yes, while the knife was dangerous, the spoon was deeply symbolic. It implied feeding, love, and a new life. Now let's talk about the troublemaker, the fork. The fork, as we know it, is a utensil with 2 or more prongs that originated in ancient Persia and was used first in the Middle East and Byzantium. But when it reached Christian Europe in the 11th century, things got heated. A Byzantine princess named Maria Argyropoulina married into the Venetian nobility and brought her elegant eating habits with her, including the use of a golden fork. The local clergy were horrified. One deacon wrote that using a fork was an offense against God, because fingers were divinely made for eating. Using an artificial tool was seen as both vain and unnatural. The fork was more than a utensil. It was a symbol of changing values, and not everyone welcomed the change peacefully. So, for centuries, forks were viewed with suspicion, associated with excess, foreignness, and even moral corruption. It wasn't until the 16th century that forks began to catch on again, thanks in part to Catherine de' Medici, who brought them to France when she married King Henry II. Even then, they were reserved for elites. England didn't fully adopt forks until the 18th century, and still, people made fun of them. By the 1700s and 1800s, the use of knives, forks, and spoons together became a sign of refinement. This was the era of etiquette. And etiquette wasn't just about manners, it was about class. How you held your fork, what you cut with your knife, and even which spoon you used mattered deeply. In elite circles, a formal dinner might include a dozen specialized utensils: fish forks, dessert spoons, oyster knives. Cutlery manufacturers like Christofle in France and Sheffield in England capitalized on this boom. Owning a matching set of silver cutlery became a mark of wealth. It wasn't just about eating, it was about being seen. And let's not forget the Industrial Revolution. Mass production made stainless steel utensils affordable, and suddenly, the middle class could play the etiquette game too. But there's a darker side to this story. Cutlery was often seen as a symbol of civilization by European colonizers, who used its absence in other cultures as proof of supposed cultural inferiority. Indigenous peoples across Asia, Africa, and the Americas who ate with their hands were labeled as uncivilized. But the truth is, using hands to eat isn't primitive. As a matter of fact, how do you eat apples, sandwiches, and French fries? In many cultures, eating with the hands is considered more connected and respectful. In India, there's even a specific technique for mixing rice with sauce using only 3 fingers. In parts of Ethiopia, the communal use of injera bread to scoop food is an act of sharing. Still, as Western norms spread globally, so did cutlery, sometimes by force, sometimes by trying to imitate the colonizers. Fast forward to the 20th century, and we get a feat of engineering, the spork. The idea of a hybrid eating utensil goes way back. In 1874, Samuel Francis patented a bizarre-looking tool that combined spoon, fork, and knife all in one. But the actual word spork, a mix of spoon and fork, wasn't trademarked until nearly a century later, in 1970. Perfect for budget airlines, school lunches, and campers. It's not great at either stabbing or scooping, but it's good enough at both. And while it's often mocked, the spork embodies a central theme in cutlery history: adaptation. Humans design tools based on their environments and habits. If you eat soup and salad in the same container, you invent the spork. If you live in chopstick cultures like China or Japan, your whole cuisine evolves around bite-sized portions and soft textures. There is no best cutlery. There's only what fits your food. Today, cutlery is a $10 billion global industry, and it's changing. Disposable utensils, mostly plastic, took off in the 20th century, with the rise of fast food and convenience culture. But they've come under scrutiny for environmental reasons. Countries like France and Canada have begun banning single-use plastic cutlery entirely. In their place, we're seeing bamboo forks, edible spoons, and compostable knives. Not to mention their close cousins, the very questionable paper straws. Meanwhile, green and minimalist trends have brought back ultra-portable, reusable cutlery sets. Backpackers now carry titanium utensils, and tech workers in Silicon Valley bring foldable sporks in their laptop bags. Cutlery is at least as much about culture as it is about eating. It shows if the culture surrounding you prizes efficiency or ritual, individualism or community. The way you hold a fork, or whether you use one at all, reflects centuries of history, politics, and technology. It reflects your geography, your ancestors, and even your religion. So next time you sit down to eat, take a second to notice your knife, your spoon, your fork. After all, those humble pieces of metal are marvels of design that evolved and resisted for centuries.